Ladies and gentlemen, Harry Brelsford from SMB Nation with another of our periodic thought leadership series of interviewing the movers and shakers in the SMB MSP community. And we have a longtime friend of the family, Michael Fraser, on today. So we've intersected with Michael Fraser for a number of years. He's always reinventing himself. He's always up to something new. And boy, fasten your seatbelt because he's got a new startup that we're going to hear about today, as well as provide ways for you to get more information on that. So, with that said, Michael, hello, good morning, good afternoon. How are you doing?
Great. Thanks, Harry. Doing really well today.
All right. I'm enjoying in the background. You have the Channel Pro article that you were part of, so you're a well-known quantity in our community. People have probably seen you in the past at trade shows and other places. But for people that don't know Michael Fraser, let's start. Give us some let's start in the past and get up to the present. So, what have you done, and what are you doing now, and then we'll jump into your new startup and product.
Appreciate it, Harry. Yeah, and there's a lot, so I'll try to summarize it. So I started out in the Air Force and worked in cybersecurity and decided that I was going to take the full immersion when I got out and start my own MSP. And I did that about over 10 years ago.
Yep.
And found out real quickly that I wanted to innovate in the channel. I've had some interesting other startups, including G Cloud 3,
Yep.
VDI space, where he focused on just that, VDI. And one of my most recent endeavors was what you see back here, from the Channel Pro Infinite Ops, which was a workspace as a service offering. And then I decided about 2 years ago that there was a need in the industry for what we now call the Cloud Plus Security Architect platform under the company Refactr, which I co-founded about 2 years ago.
Cool. I'm making a note of that. So, Michael, tell us about maybe what. So you're getting a master's degree in computer science at Seattle University, and what I like about master's degrees is, for one simple reason, I did mine right after my undergraduate work. Not sure I was as serious as I should have been, but I can't roll back time. You're all serious about this. It sounds like you're doing pretty well. They can't take it away from you. That's the beautiful thing about master's degrees is you're stuck with it. So, talk to us. What are you studying at Seattle U, and how long do you have to go?
Computer science, and the nice thing is I have only 2 more quarters left, so I'm getting to the final stages of getting my master's complete, but I'm a very non-traditional student. I decided to go back to school about 2.5 years ago,
Yep.
and in one year finished my bachelor's, which it was essentially equivalent to 2 years, and then went straight into the master's program at Seattle University.
Yeah, yeah. Well, congratulations. That's a real degree. Um, but enough of that chatter. So your new startup is Refactr. Tell us what does the company do, and then I want you to do a little bit of show and tell.
Yeah, absolutely. So, back to my background, I worked a lot with various types of companies, telcos, other larger technology companies, helping them build their cloud practices from the ground up. Even had our own cloud services that we had deployed with VDI space, prior company I had. And out of all that, found that there was really a missing piece, which is trying to productize myself and helping to figure out how to automate as all of these different services are being shifted to everything as a service model. And so, timing is everything. And so trying to figure out not only how to build something that could productize myself as a cloud architect and cloud security architect. One other thing I didn't mention before too is I actually had a brief, almost 1 year working within Optiv cybersecurity wise too, and realized that from an overall standpoint, that there's a major need in the cloud and the cybersecurity world around being able to deliver solutions, not just in the public cloud, but also in anything that is required to be software defined that traditionally required somebody who understands software. Maybe it's somebody who has an undergraduate or graduate degree in computer science, like I'm getting now. But those type of people are not only in high demand, but the supply is becoming an issue too. When I was won the IT Nation Pitch It competition, where we're now going to actually build out our marketplace with the $100,000 we won.
Yeah.
Which is pretty awesome, and I'll show you what that looks like here when we get into going through a quick demo.
I want you to hold up $100,000 in ones. Hey, Michael, let me interrupt you for just a second. Jenny over in the radio control room, could you make sure Michael has control to present his screen for the demo while he talks more about the award from ConnectWise? And Michael, let me just back up half a step for the audience that may not understand. What was the pitch off or the bake off at ConnectWise? Then you can get into your sources and uses and what you intend to do with the prize.
Yeah, absolutely. So this year was the inaugural Pitch It competition. We had to put together a business plan. That business plan had to be around growth potential with either a ConnectWise partner or a solutions partner, which essentially is a vendor. So we're interesting because we are a vendor, so we're a cloud software startup, but we can work with any vendor out there. As long as there are APIs available to us, cloud services, or we can automate tasks that require stuff to get installed on host. And so the nice thing about that is pretty much we can automate everything. So we got selected as one of the 3 finalists around our business plan growth idea to build out our marketplace, and went to IT Nation. Yep. And were able to do a 5-minute pitch. And then judges collaborated afterwards, which was Gary Pica, Jameson West, and Brad Scholl from the HCG acquisition. Yeah. And so we presented, we were one of 3 finalists, and we ended up winning the $100,000 grand prize because we had the most overall potential for the community as a whole, which was awesome. And then also, funny enough, our pitch ended up being a smaller version of what Arnie was pitching on stage, coincidentally. Which was around a full push on everything as a service and cybersecurity. And so while we're not a pure cybersecurity play, we work really nicely to help people to be able to understand what exactly they're deploying, and also trying to enforce different types of security controls that you're not even thinking about when you're going to the cloud. And so that's why it's cloud plus security, because we are very cognizant that security is definitely something at the top of everybody's priority list and moving to the cloud.
And I'm going to put it at the bottom of the screen, but could you go ahead and articulate what is your URL, and then we'll jump into the demo on your screen?
Yeah, absolutely. So our website is available at http://refactr. So it's refactr.it. So it's a play on words. It's a .it. We ended up having to get a Italian domain to have the plain words, but it's refactr.it.
There you go. Well, sir, are you ready, able, and willing to present your screen? And I'd like to learn more about your product.
Yeah, absolutely. So I will.
All right, I see it.
Awesome. All right, so this is our Cloud Plus Security Architect platform. Inside of here, the whole platform is based upon collaboration and in bringing the capabilities around having what we call a workspace, which is essentially a container in our app that you can build or blueprint out solutions and build components, which are essentially building blocks that you can build upon that are completely independent of blueprints. And so this becomes, as a service provider, they are able to build out their own intellectual property around things they may want to be able to sell to customers, all from this platform. So you can think about everything that RMM isn't right now, which is the RMM is on hosts. We are providing the connectivity beyond that, whether it becomes cloud services or it's automation on hosts, but specifically to build solutions. We're all about solution delivery, and then being able to maintain that solution for customers over time as well. And then we can also, with our last release, tie into APIs. So as long as we can hit cloud services via cloud templates, we can do automation tasks. We actually work with Red Hat Ansible, which is now IBM, but there's still Red Hat inside IBM. And then we also work generically with APIs. And so the nice thing with that API is, whether it's, say, ConnectWise Manage or a Cisco API or, Azure Graphic, any APIs that are available out there, we can tie into them from a product standpoint. And so an API is kind of a requirement for anybody that's going to an as-a-service model, because everybody's expecting that if you're as a service, you are also software defined in how you provide those services. All right, so inside of there's blueprints. In the blueprints, there are various components that get built all together. So it's you can think about it like as a collection of components that actually do something. It was interesting. I was on a call this morning with a vendor, and they asked me, "Oh, this is awesome. Do we just use this for diagramming?" And the cool thing is you can actually use this to self-document from a designer standpoint, but also it's all actionable. So it will actually deploy something wherever you're tying into, whether it's a cloud service or an external system. And so it gives service providers the ability to visually build these different solutions and then maintain them over time. So I'm going to actually show you here. So this is actually a Azure blueprint. We are doing some various things. This is all built on a quick start that allows for somebody to go through a virus attack scenario. So they can actually walk through this. There's instructions on how to do that, and they can. Our system is built so that you can run blueprints. You can run it again, you can run it again, you can make changes, you can run it again. And so it's more about an iterative process that allows you to be able to be more agile when you build solutions. And agile is a term from the software world and when you develop software. But that term hasn't really been brought to the service provider world. And so we're really about wanting to be much more agile in the approach and how you build things. So if you want to make a change, you can do that. You can run it, see how that change takes, rerun it, and so that's the more iterative approach. One of the things that we also have.
Michael, if you don't mind, before we get too far afield, just a shout out to Manuel Palachek, who's Agile certified, Agile business coach. It's my understanding it's a methodology.
It is
beyond just being a word.
Correct. It's something so in the software world, yes, there is a Agile manifesto that was created in order to go over certain principles that you follow. You want to have working software over spending a ton of time on documenting. So what we've done is apply that to solutions, but also trying to make it more self-documenting, so that when you build something out, you have the ability to see what you build out. Normally, typically, when you architect something, if you're a service provider, you're architecting a solution for a customer, you're going to go out there and build some diagrams. Once you build the diagrams and you agree to the customer after some iteration, you then hand it off to your delivery team. Well, you don't have to do that now. Yeah. You can model everything and architect it out in our platform without ever running it. And then once you're ready to run it, you can actually launch what you build out, and it gives you the ability to not only test things out, so you can test it out in our app to make sure that everything is structured the way you want it, that things are evaluating properly, but you can also customize any inputs that you want. So one great example of that is around standardization of naming. So from our standpoint, if you want to go in here and you want to have a certain naming convention for your customer, you may want to pass in, say, a name prefix. And so all of this becomes customizable for the service provider, where they can actually customize and add in any sort of inputs that they want when they build stuff out. So this could be something as simple as a name prefix that gets built out with maybe, say, a dash, whatever, inside of the cloud to build, make this custom for the customer. And so you can enforce your naming convention. So one key takeaway is that everybody wants to be able to standardize their approach, which is, is doable on on-premise gear, and you can definitely do it, but you're required to go out there and buy specific hardware. You have to make your customers abide by certain parameters on what they can or can't install. And so with our platform, as everything shifts towards this, everything is a service model and everything is software defined, we put the control back into, or the service provider back into the driver's seat on, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. And they can also eliminate human error as well, which is another thing. Most service providers I work with, if you go in and you log into, say, the RMM and you look at, all the different hosts that are named over time, everything is usually different. They want to aspire to a naming convention. They try to, but it's difficult over time as you get new engineers and so on. So that's one great example, but that's just one of many things that you can do with our platform to make sure that you're standardizing your approach, and everything can become parameters inside of the, or what we call variables, which are essentially data types that you can pass in. So we take some of our concepts of how we build this thing out from the DevOps methodologies, which I actually like to call IT ops. It was something that I presented at IT Nation, and it's really because most MSPs don't deliver software. They deliver solutions to customers, and so we're letting them be able to leverage the benefits of what a lot of the developers have out there with their tool sets, and combining that into a platform. So that's, if you were to take infrastructure as code and configuration management and API integrations and job management, which are all the key pillars of what you would use in a DevOps pipeline. The key, though, is we're not delivering software here, but we are delivering things that are software defined. And so we can still take and aspire to use the methodologies. But what we found also is that service providers need to have a platform. They need to have everything all together in one place that they can actually build and maintain the solutions that they want over time. And so that's what we've done here.
Michael, quick question. I have a tired old joke that hasn't landed very well, but it's a good Seattle joke. We're both from Seattle, but an MSP and a DevOps guy walk into a bar, and I'll just leave that hanging out there. It's a play on some other well-known joke frameworks. What I want to get at is, you're in DevOps, right? Would that be the correct you're not really an MSP, but you're in DevOps? I'm just trying to frame it up.
Yeah, no, so that's a great question. So we did make the top 10 list with CRN for the hottest DevOps startups for 2018.
Okay.
The interesting thing, though, is we're really not DevOps in the standpoint of DevOps engineers using us to deliver software. What we really are is we are a platform that takes in DevOps methodologies, kind of to the same point you were making about Agile, where it's a methodology and how you approach solving an issue, which is delivering a solution. So in the software world, if you're going to use DevOps, you're going to build out some infrastructure and some services. Then you're going to package that all up. You're going to package up your application, and you're going to deliver that software that you build inside of whatever you build out from your infrastructure. So our approach is that everything to the point of where you would actually package up your own software, you can utilize those methodologies with our platform. The difference is we're about third-party software that's already packaged versus packaging up your own software. Cool. If that makes sense.
Yep, please continue.
All right, so in the blueprint you saw, we have components. Those components stretch out over different types of offerings. So we do everything from cloud native templates to Ansible playbooks and web API integrations. And so that means essentially you can take some of these open technologies and use them in our platform. A good instance of that is taking in a Cisco CSR 1000V. We can take that entire template that builds out the not just all of the networking, but it will build out everything that's required to have a working CSR in Azure. So you can see this is pretty lengthy. So this is actually an ARM template that's native. Now, most service providers aren't going to get in here and want to build out their own ARM templates, but they may want to take, say, a quick start template, put it in here. And the cool thing is, once it's in here, whether they use something from the marketplace or they want to put in their own, they can make their own from scratch. You end up being able to generate a form that gets associated with a bunch of different parameters. So now it's starting to look more like something that's usable by somebody that would want to come in here and immediately try to deploy a Cisco CSR in Azure. And you can go in here and either keep them as default values or you can change them, but now you have the ability to say you want a certain SKU, or you want to pass in a username and password that will then get configured on the box. So again, it comes down to this, the methodologies of, we want to create the ability to present information at runtime that could be values that would get used in, say, an ARM template, for instance. And so once that gets built out, they would have that. This would end up being available inside of a blueprint. So if I go back to the blueprints and I go pick this one, which will be one that has one in it. This will actually, now this becomes a component. So this component actually, I'll just go ahead and show you this being built from scratch. So if we go in here and we go select the component, we can actually see, okay, I got a Cisco CSR in here, it's available, I've got it built out, I've tested it, everything's working. It's as simple as dragging it in. Now everything you saw that was super complicated as infrastructure as code is now a building block component. You still have the ability to configure all those settings inside of the blueprint. So if you wanted to go in here and edit the properties on there, you could for this particular blueprint. And then you can click launch and deploy it. And it's going to go out there and build it out once you connect them together and you have the dependency set up. So the goal here is, okay, well, maybe I want to add in other things into here. Okay, I can do that. Maybe I want to create a ConnectWise ticket. So I can start dragging in these building block components to do certain things for me. So it may not be necessarily just building out cloud infrastructure. It may be I want to have something else tied into a separate system like ConnectWise Manage so that I can create a ticket. And you can continue this on by adding in your workspace if you have certain things built out, or pulling from our marketplace. You can do that too. And so you can do that with various things.
Hey, Michael. Michael, Jenny, let's take a pause. I'm going to have to edit this out. I have someone at the door who's going to fix something in the background. So, Jenny, we got to pause here. Hold on. Yeah, coming.
So I can say whatever I want, Jenny, and this won't get put in.
Well, let's hope not. Depends how good Harry's editing skills are.
Nice. All right. I'll keep it all PC.
Gonna have to edit out a good chunk of time here.
No problem. Camtasia is pretty friendly about transitions. So.
Oh, yeah. I probably have learned more about Camtasia than I want to. Let me just check my stopwatch for my own edification. Hang on.
I couldn't pause the recording, Harry, because if you pause the recording, it won't record again.
No, I understand. So, Jenny, would you mind making a side note? Or I'll do it. So that basically happened at 22 minutes in. Now, that's not the same 22 minutes because I started the thing a little late, but let's assume you have 10 more minutes, and I'm going to give us a 3 count. So I know where to edit, and then Michael, just maybe 5 seconds of silence after you see the number 3. So I have a little edit buffer.
Is that enough silence? I don't see you, so.
Sorry. I'll give you a verbal. So note to self, it's a verbal count. 1, 2, 3.
So we can add in different things like creating a ConnectWise ticket. And so we drag that in, and now you have the ability to have a ticket that can get associated or created within the partner's account. So the nice thing about our platform is you can think about us as a layer on top of the entire ecosystem where we can tie into any of these different external systems. So It doesn't necessarily need to be ConnectWise. This could be Kaseya VMS. This could be Autotask. This could be anything that we start adding in to our marketplace that will be pre-built and tested, but that doesn't preclude anybody from being able to go in and create their own from scratch. So, for instance, we have some partners now that are building towards their own VMware vCloud Director API on their own data center build-outs of infrastructure they have. So we're getting very creative in what partners are asking for, because our whole goal was to provide the platform that they could start building towards anything that they wanted to be able to tie in from a system standpoint. So the APIs, from the API side, you can think about us as kind of like that. One piece of that would be like Zapier or Microsoft Flow, and so but that's just one piece of our platform, because that's just the API component. So we also have the cloud templates and also the automation tasks on host too. So for instance, if I decided to continue building this out, I could start building out some Azure specific resources that would be around, say, some cloud services in conjunction to the stuff that we just built out here. So we have the resource group, we have the Cisco CSR. This is going to build a full CSR off of an ARM template. But again, this is now visually represented as a building block component in our app. All these arrows are dependencies, so this has to run before this runs, and so on and so forth. But you can run things in parallel too. And so we can start building out other things that we may want in here. And so the other nice thing is, maybe I just want to start iterating on this, and I only want to build out this Cisco CSR when I first run this, or maybe I just want to test out and make sure everything is working in my resource group, and I want to make sure that I let ConnectWise or Manage know. I could come in here and click Launch, type in here whatever I need. So this has a resource name prefix. I can have that in here. We also have visual source control. Essentially what that means is we have revisions that you can select from at different points in time. This maps nicely to the plus security in the name of our platform, from a standpoint of not only can you create configurations, but you can also enforce certain points in time that you may want to have for revisions of the blueprints, and then also the components as well. They're not one and the same, they're actually separate, so you can actually manage your revisions of your components completely separate from the revisions of the blueprint. And then you can pick your cloud subscription and click submit, and it'll be off to the races to start building this out. That would all work towards, so we can just test this out real quick. All right, so we're going to do version 7. We're going to submit this. This should run through, and we're going to do a dry run, which essentially means it's going to test everything out. It's not going to run against the cloud, and it's going to let us know, okay, did everything run? Is everything set and correct? I know it is, because these are resources that we have published out to the marketplace. But this is where our job manager comes in too, where you get all kinds of logging information as well. So we really want to empower service providers to not only be able to build solutions that they want, but they can also make mistakes and correct them themselves, because we expose all of that capability to them. Because when they come in here and they can look at the different logs inside of the blueprint, the nice thing in the blueprint is they can also see the jobs that are run inside of the blueprint. If there's any errors that happen, if it's a cloud-based error, which this one is, they need to go and log into the ARM or the Azure portal. But it's really about showing them the information as much as we possibly can in here, and then they can actually launch the blueprint again, and you can run them over and over themselves. So again, this whole iterative, agile type approach, where you can change or make changes to your blueprints over time, and you'll be able to manage them over, as long as you have them with the customer.
Michael, help me out with the word blueprint. Is this analogous to package or container? What is it? I mean, I know what the word blueprint means, but help me just close a feeble-minded knowledge gap.
Yeah, absolutely. So a blueprint for us, and a lot of people will also use the term like reference architecture. Okay. It's a way to build out a solution. You can also call it a solution blueprint.
Okay.
But it's do I have multiple different what we call components inside of something that's larger that has dependencies, and that's what you see here with all these arrows. They're dependencies. So this can't run, or this can't run until this finishes, and so we have a dependency management as well built in.
Okay, you've answered my question. Thank you.
Okay. No problem. Now, the other thing is, if we run a blueprint, it will freeze it at that point in time to enforce and make sure that if you make any additional changes to it, that we can keep track of those. So I'm going to say this is the SMB Nation demo. So now I know that I'm working within this particular version, but if I want to go back to a different version, I can too, and look at that. So if I want to look at the very first version here, we had nothing in it. But then if I go to a different version, I can start seeing some stuff that's in here. And then I can go back to the other one, or I can restore a subsequent version as well. So I'm going to go back to the same version we were working within. And you can now see I have a working version that I can come back in here and start adding in other components. So I'm not going to add a bunch of things in, but just to kind of show you how this all works. If I have a virtual network, I will also need a, actually this one has both in it, so we can combine these together. So that's good here. I'll actually go ahead and close this, and we'll delete this out. This combines those together, and then we can add in an IP address, a NIC, and you can start seeing how this starts to become a solution that has many different components on it. So I can add in a IP address that we'll need. We'll also want most likely a NIC, so we can do that too. Actually, I'll add this IP address, and we'll take this one out. And so you can start seeing I'm starting to build all of this out. If I want to run things in tandem that I know could be run too, I may have, say, a virtual network and a security group. So I may want one of those. And so now you can see from a visual perspective, I can start seeing without even deploying it into the cloud yet. I'm just solely architecting out my solution before I even get into this particular deploying it into, say, Azure, for instance. So I start building this out. I may have a NIC that I want for my virtual machine, so I can have that. I build that out, and then let me zoom out a little bit so I can see that. And then we can have this, which you'll have. So we also have pre-built blueprints, as I'll show you in the marketplace. So a lot of this stuff will be done for partners who may not want to come in here and try to build this all up themselves. But
I was gonna say, I think I want the pre-built, man.
But I'm just kind of showing you the ease of use of what this is. So you can do that. Now, if I wanted to go do a pre-built, say, let me just finish this out. So I could say I want a virtual machine in here, and so I could have the virtual machine. And then if I wanted something, say, on the virtual machine, some sort of automation that I would have on the machine, I could say, maybe I want a web root agent that I would drop onto the machine. And so I could start building out exactly the products that I want on different hosts as well. Or maybe I use Automate for RMM, so I could do that as well and drop that on. And you can see how you can start adding in more layers of automation and really truly orchestrating, which is what our aim is here overall into many different systems. Now, to your point, you're right. Most service providers would probably come in here, and you could pick from a starter blueprint, which would essentially give you the ability to, all the stuff we were just building out there, this is already pre-built out, pre-certified. You can come in here and clone this out. So if you want to clone it into your workspace, and then once you clone, we can clone that into the workspace. And then once we clone it into the workspace, we could use it as it is, which this will clone it in. And then we go into our blueprints, and we can look in and see the SMB starter in here. We'll pin it to the top so we can see it at the very top, and then we'll go in there and say we wanted to add in the Cisco CSR into here like we were showing in the other blueprint. We could come in here and drag it in. So this is already pre-built out. This will actually work to deploy a virtual machine. But now I have the ability to add this in. So if I want this in here, so if I wanted to, I could, for instance, add this in here under the resource group, tie it in, and I now have a Cisco CSR built in to this overall blueprint. So now you can see how this whole modular approach to having the pre-built, but then maybe you just want something that's in addition to, you can absolutely add that in and have that available inside of here. And again, to the other stuff we were talking about too, so say you wanted to create a ConnectWise ticket, you can do that. And so now you start customizing something we have for the marketplace where we've only added a couple of additional components, but we've made it into something that the service provider can have inside of their workspace that they can now go and launch it for a customer.
Well, hey, Michael, let's bring this plane in for a landing. SMB Nation MSP is going to reach out to you, and I'm assuming you can double click down into a deeper dive if someone reaches out to you. Is that fair?
Absolutely, and there's a lot more here to cover, so I kept it super high level on the value of the visual.
I'm just hanging on, man. I'm just hanging on. As we wrap up, and I appreciate what you've shown us, and we'll get you back, by the way. Let's check in with you next quarter and see how it's going and maybe go a little bit deeper, and we'll start to stitch this stuff out. Let's go back to the business model. So number one, you won the award from ConnectWise. Now, have you raised money from angels and friends and family in a Series A, or are you still pretty much organic with the prize winnings?
Yeah, so we're still organic. We are in a hybrid kind of place between seed and Series A due to the fact that we have a platform and we have some customers. That being said, we are actively raising our next round. So we may have some updates for you next time around. And then also, we are actively working towards launching a community site for the ConnectWise community to vote on what they want to see from a blueprint perspective. So we may be able to go over maybe the top blueprint that was requested in a subsequent demo that we can do next quarter after we get everybody voting and start building out stuff.
Yeah, no, we'll talk quarterly. Last question would be, I'm an MSP and I reach out to you. Do you provide these services? I understand you're providing the platform, but do you also provide the engineering and the services? Because, dude, I don't think I can do this.
Yeah, so we know that no matter what, it's difficult to try to figure out what exactly you want to architect out, even if it's made much easier by our platform. And so we do provide professional services around helping service providers to build out blueprints and components on the front end, or even taking some of the stuff from our marketplace and just fine-tuning it for them to be able to use with customers. Because the goal eventually is that for the majority of time that they're working within our system and using it, that they can work with all of the blueprints and components that they would have us helping them build into their workspace or workspaces. And then we are going to be offering coming up next in January, managed services around our platform and managing these different blueprints and components on a monthly basis, where you'll actually get a certain threshold of engineering time per month, just like you would have in your managed services with customers, but we'll offer that with our platform with some managed services packages.
All right, well, let's make that the final word for this. Is the end of the year, 2018. We'll call it Q4. We're going to talk to you in Q1. Michael Fraser at Refactr. And folks, you can see the information beneath us on the screen to get more information. So, Michael, let me be, I doubt I'm the first, but let me be one of the people to wish you happy holidays, you and your family. We'll see you in 2019, my friend.
Thanks, Harry. Happy holidays to you and your family, too, and really appreciate the time.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care.